The small research ship Kepler's Dream floated like a dead fish in the endless black space between two distant star systems. Inside, 12 human scientists and crew members were slowly running out of air to breathe. Their main engine had blown up 3 days ago during a routine jump, leaving them stranded millions of miles from anywhere safe. Captain Jiho wiped sweat from his forehead as he looked at the oxygen readings on his screen. The numbers kept getting smaller every hour. They had maybe 2 days left before they would all suffocate in the cold darkness of space. His hands shook slightly as he adjusted the emergency radio one more time. "This is the Earth's research vessel, Kepler's Dream, calling any ship in range." Giho spoke into the microphone for the 100th time. "We have 12 souls aboard and are running out of breathable air. Our position is Sector 77 Alpha. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need immediate rescue." The radio crackled with empty static. Jiho's crew members looked at each other with worried faces. They all knew the truth. They were too far from human space for any Earth ships to reach them in time. Out here in this remote part of the galaxy, only alien ships traveled these routes. Engineer Soman sat at her broken control panel, trying once again to restart their dead engines. Sparks flew from the damaged circuits, but nothing happened.
"Captain."
"The fusion core is completely fried," she said sadly.
"How?"
"Even if I had the right parts, it would take weeks to fix this mess." Navigator Hyen studied his star charts with tired eyes. "The nearest human outpost is 4 months away, even if we had working engines," he reported. "The closest planet with breathable air is 6 weeks from here." Jiho closed his eyes and tried not to think about his wife and 2 young children. Back on Earth, he had promised them he would come home safely from this research mission. Now it looked like he might never see them again, far across the solar system. The massive Valdorian trade ship Gentle Current was carrying a load of rare metals to the markets on Centauri Prime. Captain Threx was reviewing cargo manifests when his communications officer suddenly looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm picking up a distress signal," she announced, "coming from the restricted zone near the Helix Nebula." Threx's 4 eyes widened with concern. The Helix Nebula was known to be dangerous space, full of radiation storms and gravitational anomalies that could crush a ship. "What kind of vessel is sending the signal?" he asked. "Sir, the transmission says it's from Earth," the officer replied nervously. "It's a human ship." The bridge fell completely silent. Every Valdorian crew member stopped what they were doing and stared at their captain. Humans were legendary throughout the galaxy. Stories spoke of creatures from a death world so harsh that it created the most dangerous species anyone had ever encountered. Most aliens tried to avoid humans whenever possible, but Threx also knew about the ancient laws that governed all spacefaring races. When someone sent out a distress call, you had to help them if you could. It didn't matter if they were your worst enemy. The emptiness of space was dangerous enough without. Ignoring people who needed rescue, Captain Threx stared at his navigation screen for a long moment, watching the blinking red dot that marked the human distress signal. His crew waited nervously behind him, their purple skin turning pale with fear. Everyone in the galaxy had heard the stories about humans and their terrifying home planet Earth. "Captain, we don't have to do this," whispered his first officer. "We could say we never received the signal. No one would ever know." Threx shook his head slowly. "The distress protocols are sacred. We cannot ignore beings who are dying in space, no matter where they come from." He turned to face his crew. "Set course for the human vessel. We're going to save them." The journey to reach the Kepler's Dream took 18 hours. When the massive Valdorian trade ship finally arrived, Threx expected to find a dark, dead vessel floating in space. Instead, he saw lights flickering inside the human ship and movement through the windows. "How are they still alive?" gasped his medical officer. "According to our scans, that ship has been venting atmosphere for days. The radiation levels inside should have killed them all by now." Threx opened communications with the human vessel. "This is Captain Threx of the Valdorian ship, Gentle Current. We received your distress call. Are you able to dock with our vessel?" Captain Jiho's voice crackled through the radio, sounding tired but strangely calm. "Captain Threx, thank you for responding. We can bring our ship alongside yours, but our docking system is damaged. Your people will need to create a seal from your side." As the two ships slowly moved together, Threx watched through his viewing port and couldn't believe what he was seeing. Inside the human ship, crew members were moving around normally, working on repairs as if nothing was wrong. One human woman was standing inside a compartment that was glowing with deadly radiation, calmly welding metal plates together. "That's impossible," breathed his engineer. "That level of radiation would cook our internal organs in minutes." "Is she still standing?" When the docking was complete, Threx led a small rescue team onto the human vessel. The moment he stepped through the airlock, he immediately felt sick. The air was thin and filled with toxic fumes that burned his lungs. The temperature was so hot that his protective suit began overheating within seconds, but the humans were walking around in just their regular clothes. Breathing the poisonous air like it was perfectly normal, Engineer Salman looked up from her work and smiled at the Valdorian rescue team. "Hello there. Thanks so much for coming to help us. We've almost got the life support systems working again, but we're still having trouble with the main engines." Threx stared at her in shock. She was standing next to a massive crack in the ship's hull, where space was trying to suck everything out into the void. She had stuffed some kind of cloth into the gap and was casually welding a metal patch over it with her bare hands. No gloves or protection. Navigator Hayan was floating near the ceiling, somehow breathing normally in an area where Threx's instruments showed there was almost no oxygen left. He was using some kind of human tool to repair electrical systems that were shooting sparks and electricity everywhere. "Please, you must come with us immediately," Threx said, his voice shaking with fear and amazement. "Your ship is not safe. Our medical bay can treat any injuries you might have." Captain Jiho nodded gratefully. "We appreciate the rescue, Captain. Let us grab our research data and personal items, and we'll be ready to go." As the 12 humans gathered their belongings, Threx's crew watched in silent terror. These creatures from Earth were surviving in conditions that would kill any other known species in the galaxy. They moved through deadly radiation, breathed toxic air, and worked with dangerous electricity like it was just another day at the office. When all the humans were safely aboard, gentle current Threx sealed the airlock and ordered his ship to move to a safe distance. As they traveled toward the nearest space station, he filled out the standard rescue report that all captains had to file with the Galactic Maritime Authority. He had no idea that this simple paperwork would soon change everything in the galaxy. Administrator Keelex sat at her desk on the massive space station that served as headquarters for the Galactic Maritime Authority. She was tired after processing hundreds of boring rescue reports, shipping manifests, and trade disputes. Most days, her job involved nothing more exciting than approving cargo routes and filing paperwork. But when Captain Threx's rescue report appeared on her screen, everything changed. Keelex nearly dropped her cup of bitter Centaurian coffee when she saw the word Earth in the report. She read the document 3 times to make sure she wasn't making a mistake. 12 humans had been rescued from a disabled research vessel in the Outer Rim territories. The report seemed routine, but Keelex knew better. Her hands shook as she reached for her computer terminal. In her 15 years working for the Maritime Authority, she had only heard whispers about Protocol 7. It was an ancient emergency procedure created centuries ago. When the galaxy's major civilizations first encountered species from death, worlds, planets so dangerous that they created creatures no one else could understand. "Computer access Protocol 7, she said in a nervous voice. A red warning screen flashed on her monitor. Protocol 7 requires immediate notification of all registered spacefaring civilizations when citizens of classified death worlds are involved in maritime incidents. Are you sure you want to proceed? Keelex hesitated for a moment. Once she pressed that button, there would be no going back. Every major government, military force, and trading empire in the galaxy would receive an emergency alert about the human rescue. But the law was clear. Death world species required special handling. She pressed the button. Within minutes, automated messages began racing across the galaxy at faster than light speeds. The alert was simple but terrifying. Emergency Protocol 7 activated. Earth humans stranded in Sector 77 Alpha. Rescue completed by Valdorian vessel. All governments advised. The first to receive the message was the Nexari Empire, a military dictatorship that controlled 12 star systems through fear and violence. General Kazix was reviewing battle plans when his communications officer burst into the war room. "We've received a Protocol 7 alert," the officer announced breathlessly. "It's about humans." Kazix's blood ran cold. 20 years ago, his fleet had encountered a single human trading ship that had wandered into Nexari space.
The humans had
been polite and friendly, offering to trade Earth's medicines and technologies. But when Kazix had tried to board their ship and take their goods by force, those same friendly humans had fought like devils from the deepest pits of hell. Half his fleet had been destroyed in the battle. The humans had used tactics and weapons that defied everything Kazix knew about warfare. They fought with a brutal efficiency that still gave him nightmares. "Find out everything you can about this rescue," Kazix ordered. "If humans are active in that sector, I want to know why." Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out in dozens of government centers and military headquarters. The peaceful Corvani Assembly remembered human mercenaries who had saved their colonies from pirates 10 years ago. Those humans had asked for almost nothing in payment, but they had fought with such terrifying skill that the pirates had fled the entire sector and never returned. The ethereal collective, masters of psychic warfare who could control the minds of most species, still spoke in hushed tones about their first contact with humans. Their most powerful mind controllers had tried to influence human thoughts, only to discover that human brains were completely immune to psychic attack. It was like trying to control a brick wall. The ancient Sylvan Council, whose members had lived for thousands of years, shared old stories about the first humans to leave their home planet. Those early human explorers had been curious and friendly, but when threatened, they had shown a capacity for violence that shocked even the war-hardened SYLVANs. As news of the human rescue spread from government to government, a pattern began to emerge. Every major civilization in the galaxy had encountered humans at some point over the past few centuries, and every single encounter had left a lasting impression. Some species remembered humans as brave allies who had helped them in times of need. Others recalled them as terrifying enemies who had crushed their fleets with impossible tactics. But everyone agreed on one thing: humans were not like any other species in the galaxy. Within hours, what had started as a simple rescue report had become the most important intelligence briefing in recent galactic history. Military commanders pulled out old files about human encounters. Scientists studied data about Earth's impossible environment. Politicians debated what it meant that humans were now active in previously unexplored space. And somewhere in the deep reaches of space, 12 rescued human researchers had no idea that their simple distress call was about to change the balance of power in the entire galaxy. The emergency alert about the human rescue spread across the galaxy like wildfire, reaching the command centers of every major civilization within hours. What most species didn't realize was that they were all thinking the same thing. This was their chance to finally learn more about the mysterious humans and their legendary home planet Earth. On the fortress world of Nexar Prime, General Kazix paced back and forth in his war room, studying star charts with hungry eyes. The coordinates from the human rescue were clearly marked in red on his holographic display. For decades, the Nexari Empire had been searching for Earth's location, hoping to either conquer the human homeworld or destroy it before the humans could become a threat. "This is our opportunity," Kazix growled to his fleet commanders. "If we can capture some of these humans alive, we can force them to reveal Earth's location. Once we know where their homeworld is, we can strike before they know we're coming." His second-in-command, Admiral Vex, looked nervous. "Sir, remember what happened the last time we fought humans? They destroyed half our battle fleet with just 3 ships. Kazix slammed his fist on the table. "That was 20 years ago. We've learned from that mistake. This time we'll bring enough firepower to crush them completely. Prepare the Third Fleet for immediate departure." Across the galaxy on the crystal spires of Ethereal Prime, the Council of Minds was having a very different conversation. These pale, ghostly beings had mastered the art of psychic warfare, able to control the thoughts and actions of almost every species they encountered. But humans had always been different. Council leader Zephy's floated above the others, her translucent form shimmering with psychic energy. "The humans are active again in the outer territories," she whispered directly into the minds of her followers. "We must investigate this rescue. If they're expanding their territory, we need to understand their intentions." "Should we attempt contact?" asked another council member. "Our previous encounters with humans were ... unsuccessful." Zephy's remembered the humiliation of their first meeting with humans centuries ago. The ethereal collective had tried to dominate human minds, expecting easy victory. Instead, they had discovered that human thoughts were completely protected by some kind of natural mental barrier. It was like trying to control a solid wall of steel. "Send the fourth meditation fleet," Zephy's decided. "But this time, we approach with caution. These humans are not like other species." Meanwhile, in the peaceful gardens of Corvani Central, the Assembly of Elders was having a much more positive discussion about the human alert. Elder Jareem, whose blue skin showed the wisdom marks of someone who had lived for over 300 years, smiled as he read the rescue report. "My friends, this brings back memories," Jareem said to his fellow elders. "Do you remember the human mercenaries who saved our colonies from the Reaper pirates?" Elder Yila nodded slowly. "How could we forget? And those pirates were terrorizing our outer worlds. No one could stop them. The pirates had faster ships, better weapons, and they showed no mercy to civilians. But then the humans arrived," added Elder Turk. "Just 12 human soldiers on one small ship. We thought they were crazy to take on an entire pirate fleet with so few people." Joram's eyes grew distant as he remembered. "Those humans studied the pirates for only 2 days, then they attacked. They used tactics we had never seen before, hiding in asteroid fields, setting traps, turning the pirates' own weapons against them. Within a week, the entire pirate fleet was destroyed or scattered. And when we tried to pay them," Yila continued, "they asked for almost nothing, just some medical supplies and star charts. They said they were happy to help people who were being bullied by criminals." The elders sat in comfortable silence for a moment, remembering the gratitude their people still felt toward those human warriors. "We should send ships to assist," Jarem finally declared. If humans are in trouble, the Corvani people have a debt to repay." As these conversations were happening across the galaxy, something unprecedented began to occur. For the first time in galactic history, fleets from dozens of different civilizations were all heading toward the same coordinates. Some came with weapons ready, hoping to capture or destroy the humans. Others approached with offers of help and alliance, but they all shared one thing in common. They had seriously underestimated what they were about to encounter. The 12 human researchers aboard the Gentle Current had no idea that their simple distress call had triggered the largest gathering of alien fleets in recorded history. They were just grateful to be alive and looking forward to getting home to Earth. They had no way of knowing that Earth was already preparing to come to them. 3 days after the rescue, the first alien warships arrived at the coordinates where the Kepler's Dream had sent its distress signal. General Kazakh's Nexari battlecruisers dropped out of faster-than-light travel, expecting to find either empty space or the wreckage of a destroyed human vessel. Instead, they found something that made no sense at all. The human research ship was still there, floating peacefully in the void. But instead of being dark and lifeless, every light on the vessel was glowing brightly. The ship's engines were humming with power, and strange new additions had been welded to its hull. "This is impossible," muttered Admiral Vex as he stared at his sensor readings. "Our intelligence said this ship was completely destroyed. The engines were dead, the hull was breached in multiple places, and they were out of air." Studied the human vessel through his viewing screen with growing suspicion. "Scan their ship for weapons," he ordered. "I want to know what we're dealing with." The weapons officer looked confused as he checked his instruments. "Sir, I'm detecting some kind of energy signatures, but they don't match any known weapon systems. In our database, it looks like they've built something using parts from their science equipment." Inside the Kepler's Dream, Captain Jiho was having a quiet conversation with his crew in the ship's small meeting room. They had spent the last 3 days working around the clock to repair their vessel, using nothing but spare parts, scientific instruments, and pure human stubbornness. Engineer Salman had somehow managed to rebuild their main engine using components from their geological survey equipment. Navigator Hoon had patched the hull breaches with metal plates taken from their food storage containers. Most impressively, Communications Officer Daon had rigged their radio telescope to work as a defensive sensor array that could detect approaching ships from incredible distances. "Captain, we have multiple alien vessels approaching our position," Daon reported calmly. "The lead ships are broadcasting in Nexari military codes. They appear to be battle cruisers." Jiho nodded grimly. Every human in space had heard stories about the Nexari Empire and their violent reputation. "How long until they reach us?" "Already here, sir. The lead ship is trying to establish communications." Jiho straightened his uniform and walked to the communication station. "Put them through." General Kazakh's harsh voice filled the bridge. "Human vessel, this is General Kazakh of the Nexari Imperial Fleet. You are ordered to surrender immediately. Prepare to be boarded for questioning." Captain Jiho smiled politely, even though he knew the alien couldn't see his face. "General Kazakh, this is Captain Jiho of the Earth's research vessel, Kepler's Dream. I appreciate your interest in our situation, but we must respectfully decline your offer. We're conducting peaceful scientific research and have no intention of surrendering to anyone." There was a long silence on the communication channel. Finally, Kazakh spoke again, his voice full of rage. "Human, you are in no position to refuse our demands. Our scans show that your ship was nearly destroyed. You have 12 crew members against our battle fleet of 30 warships. Surrender now, or we will take you by force." Jiho's crew looked at him with calm determination. They had all known this moment might come. Medical Officer Taiyang quietly moved to the emergency medical station, preparing to treat wounded crew members. Communications Officer Daon began coordinating with the other crew members, assigning defensive positions throughout the ship. "General, I understand your position," Jiho replied in the same polite tone. "However, I think you may have underestimated our current capabilities. Would you like a demonstration?" Before Kazakhs could respond, Engineer Salman activated the weapon system she had built from their scientific equipment. The ship's mineral analysis laser, normally used to study rock samples, had been modified and amplified to incredible power levels. A brilliant beam of energy shot out from the Kepler's Dream and struck a small asteroid floating nearby. The asteroid, which had been about the size of a house, completely vaporized in a flash of superheated gas and molten rock. "In the depths of space was that," Admiral Vex whispered, staring at his sensor readings in shock. General Kazakh's voice was much less confident when he spoke again. "Human ship, that was an impressive display. But you have one weapon against our entire fleet. The mathematics are not in your favor." "Actually, General, that was just our mining laser," Jiho explained cheerfully. "We have several other systems we've modified for defensive purposes. Our atmospheric processor can create toxic gas clouds. Our gravity generator can trap your ships in place, and our communication array can jam your sensors and weapons targeting systems." As if to prove his point, Daon activated their improvised jamming system. Suddenly, half the Nexari ships found their instruments going crazy, displaying false readings and error messages. "Sir, they're somehow interfering with our entire fleets." Electronics reported a panicked Nexari officer. "Our targeting computers can't lock onto their ship." But before General Kazakhs could decide how to respond to this unexpected turn of events, new ships began arriving in the area. First came the ghostly white vessels of the Ethereal Collective. Then the elegant curved ships of the Corvani Assembly, followed by fleets from a dozen other civilizations. What had started as a simple confrontation between the Nexari and 12 human researchers was rapidly becoming the largest gathering of alien military forces in recent galactic history. And at the center of it all, Captain Jiho and his crew waited calmly, ready to defend themselves against whatever came next. Deep beneath the rocky surface of Earth's moon, Hidden sensors that had been quietly watching the galaxy for decades suddenly came alive with urgent warnings. The massive Terran Defense Force monitoring station looked like an ordinary research facility from the outside. But inside, hundreds of human officers tracked every ship movement within 50 light-years of Earth. Lieutenant Minho was the first to notice something was wrong. His screen lit up with dozens of red dots, all converging on a single point in space. "Ma'am, we've got a problem," he called out to his supervisor. "I'm seeing massive fleet movements heading toward Sector 77 Alpha, Commander." Yangji rushed over to look at his display. Her face went pale as she counted the alien ships. "How many vessels are we talking about?" "At least 300 warships from 12 different civilizations," Minho replied, his voice tight with worry. "They're all heading to the exact coordinates. Where the Kepler's Dream sent their distress signal 3 days ago?" Yunji's blood ran cold. The rescue of Captain Jiho's research team had seemed like good news when they first heard about it. But now, she realized the terrible truth: the aliens had used the distress beacon to triangulate the general location of human space. After centuries of keeping Earth's position secret, their cover was finally blown. "Get me Admiral Hyjin immediately," UNG ordered, "and activate the emergency protocols. This is a code red situation." Admiral Hyjin was in her private quarters, reading bedtime stories to her young daughter over video call. When the emergency alert sounded throughout the space station, she kissed her fingertips and touched the screen, where her daughter's face smiled back at her.
Really knowing to see her little girl again for a very long time, within minutes.
Admiral Hyjin was standing in the main command center studying the tactical display that showed alien fleets gathering around the tiny Kepler's Dream. Her senior officers stood around her, their faces grim as they realized what they were looking at. "How bad is it?" Admiral Hyjin asked quietly. "We count at least 20 different alien civilizations represented in those fleets," reported Captain Sung Ho, her intelligence officer. "The Nexori Empire has sent their 3rd fleet, which includes 30 battle cruisers. The Ethereal Collective brought their mind control ships. We're even seeing vessels from species we've never encountered before." Admiral Hyjin studied the numbers on the screen. The human fleet was powerful, but they were looking at odds of nearly 1,000 to 1. Any reasonable military commander would call this situation hopeless. But Admiral Hyjin wasn't just any commander. She was the product of Earth's long and bloody history of warfare, where humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other and learning hard lessons about strategy, tactics, and survival. "What assets do we have available for immediate deployment?" she asked. "The 2nd and 5th fleets are fully operational," replied Captain Rena, her fleet coordinator. "That gives us 47 ships total. First Fleet is still undergoing repairs from the asteroid mining incident last month." 47 ships against 300, mused Admiral Hyjin. "Our ancestors have faced worse odds than this." Her officers looked at her with a mixture of respect and concern. They all knew the stories of human military history, how small groups of human fighters had defeated much larger forces through clever tactics, better preparation, and sheer stubborn refusal to give up. "Ma'am, with respect, this isn't a battle we can win through conventional means," said Captain Sung Ho. "Maybe we should try diplomatic contact first. Some of those alien fleets might be there to help." Admiral Hyjin shook her head. "Intelligence. Reports show that at least 6 of those civilizations have had hostile encounters with humans in the past. The Nexar Empire has been looking for Earth's location for decades. This isn't a rescue mission anymore. It's a military crisis." Turned to address her entire command staff. "Gentlemen, we have 12 human researchers surrounded by alien battle fleets, and they're counting on us to get them home safely. I don't care if we're outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Those are our people out there, and we don't abandon our own." The room fell silent as her officers absorbed the weight of her words. In human culture, leaving people behind wasn't just wrong, it was unthinkable. Every human child grew up hearing stories about soldiers who died protecting their comrades, about rescue missions that succeeded against impossible odds, about ordinary people who became heroes because they refused to let others suffer alone. "Begin fleet mobilization immediately," Admiral Hyjin ordered. "Contact our allies in the outer colonies and tell them we may need their support. And send a message to Earth Command, inform them that our location has been compromised and they should prepare defensive measures." As her officers hurried to carry out their orders, Admiral Hyjin took one last look at the tactical display. 300 alien warships against 47 human vessels. The mathematics were brutal, but she had something the aliens didn't understand. Humans had been perfecting the art of warfare for millennia. They had fought in forests and deserts, on mountains and oceans, in the frozen Arctic and scorching tropics. They had learned how to turn every disadvantage into an advantage, how to use their enemies' strengths against them, and most importantly, they never forgot that sometimes the most dangerous opponent is the one who has nothing left to lose. The space around the Kepler's Dream had become a deadly maze of alien warships, each fleet maintaining careful distances from the others while keeping their weapons trained on the small human research vessel. For 6 tense hours, Captain Jeho and his crew had been surrounded by hundreds of alien ships, with more arriving every few minutes. Inside the research vessel, the 12 humans tried to stay calm as they watched the gathering storm through their viewports. Communications Officer Dayon monitored the radio chatter between the alien fleets, translating the various languages and keeping track of which ships belonged to which civilizations. "Captain, the Nexari fleet is getting impatient," Dayon reported quietly. "They're discussing whether to attack us before the other fleets make their move." Captain Jeho nodded grimly. Through the main viewport, he could see the massive Nexari battle cruisers hovering like hungry predators, their weapon ports glowing with deadly energy. "Any word from Earth Command?" "Nothing yet, sir. But I'm detecting some unusual energy signatures at the edge of the system. Something big is coming." Suddenly, space itself seemed to ripple and tear as dozens of human warships dropped out of faster than light travel simultaneously. The alien fleets, which had been focused on the tiny research vessel, suddenly found themselves facing an entirely different situation. Admiral Hyjin's flagship, the massive dreadnought Terra's Fury, appeared directly between the Kepler's Dream and the largest concentration of alien ships. Around it, 46 other human vessels spread out in a complex defensive formation that the aliens had never seen before. The human ships were different from anything else in the galaxy. Where alien vessels were often sleek and elegant, human warships looked like they had been built for one purpose only: to fight and win in the most dangerous conditions possible. Their hulls were covered in thick armor plating, their weapon systems were practical and brutally efficient, and every surface bristled with defensive systems. General Kazakh stared at his tactical display in shock. "Where did they come from?" he demanded. "Our long-range sensors didn't detect any approaching fleets." His tactical officer's voice shook with fear. "Sir, it appears the humans have some kind of advanced stealth technology. Those ships must have been traveling dark for hours to get this close without being detected." On the bridge of the Terra's Fury, Admiral Hyjin calmly surveyed the alien fleet surrounding her people. She had spent the journey here studying intelligence reports about each civilization represented in the gathering armada. She knew their strengths, their weaknesses, and most importantly, their fears. "Open a channel to all ships in the area," she ordered. Communications Officer Youngman nodded. "Channel open, Admiral. All alien fleets are receiving." Admiral Hyjin's voice carried across space with calm authority. "This is Admiral Hyjin of the Terran Defense Force. To the captain of the Valdorian vessel, Gentle Current," you answered. "Our distress call when our people needed help. We're here to return the favor." Inside the Kepler's Dream, Captain Jeho felt tears of relief forming in his eyes as he watched human warships taking protective positions around his tiny research vessel. After days of being surrounded by hostile aliens, seeing the familiar shapes of Earth ships was the most beautiful sight he had ever witnessed. "All human vessels, this is Kepler's Dream," Jeho broadcast to the rescue fleet. 12 souls aboard, all safe and accounted for. "We've jury-rigged some defensive systems, but we're ready for immediate evacuation if necessary." Admiral Hyjin's warm voice responded immediately. "Understood, Kepler's Dream. You're under the protection of the Terran Defense Force now. Nobody's going to hurt you while we're here?" The alien fleet suddenly realized they were no longer looking at helpless refugees. The human ships moved with a precision and coordination that spoke of centuries of military experience. Their weapon systems, while unfamiliar, radiated a threatening energy that made even the most aggressive alien commanders think twice about attacking. Captain, Threx of the Gentle Current watched the human rescue fleet with amazement. These weren't the desperate, dying humans he had rescued 3 days ago. These were the legendary warriors of Earth, the species that had emerged from a death world so harsh it had forged them into the galaxy's most formidable fighters. Captain, Threx Admiral Hygen's voice came through his communications system. The Valdorian people have earned humanity's eternal gratitude. Your ship and crew are under our protection. Any vessel that threatens you will answer to us. Elder Jarima of the Corvani Assembly smiled as he received a similar message welcoming his peaceful fleet as honored allies. But the same voice that spoke warmly to friends carried a very different tone when addressing the Nexari battle cruisers. General Kha'Zix, Admiral Hyjin said, her voice now cold as the vacuum of space. You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and withdraw to a safe distance. After that, we will consider any aggressive action as an attack on Earth's citizens, and we will respond accordingly. General Kha'Zix found himself facing an impossible choice. He had come here expecting to capture a few helpless human researchers. Instead, he was staring at the full military might of humanity's death world civilization. For the first time in his military career, the fierce Nexari general felt genuine fear. The standoff was about to become something much more dangerous. General, Kha'Zix stared at the human warships surrounding his fleet, his 4 hands gripping the command chair so tightly that his claws left deep scratches in the metal. For 30 years, he had built his reputation on fear and overwhelming force. No enemy had ever spoken to him the way this human admiral just had. Sir, the humans are waiting for our response, his weapons officer reported nervously. We powered down our weapons as they demanded. Kha'Zix's mind raced as he studied the tactical display. The human ships were outnumbered 7-1 by his fleet alone, and there were hundreds of other alien vessels in the area. But something about the way the human ships moved made him deeply uncomfortable. They held their positions with a confidence that suggested they knew something he didn't. General, perhaps we should consider withdrawing, suggested Admiral Vex quietly. We came here to capture a few researchers, not to start a war with the entire human military. No, Kha'Zix roared, his voice echoing through the bridge. We'll not be humiliated by these death world savages. If we retreat now, every species in the galaxy will think the mighty Nexori Empire is afraid of a handful of human ships. He turned to his weapons officer with fire in his eyes. Target the human research vessel. If we destroy their people, they'll have no choice but to surrender or flee. Sir, that's a civilian ship with no military value, Admiral Vex protested. Attacking non-combatants will unite every other fleet here against us. But Kha'Zix was beyond reason. His pride had been wounded, and in Nexari culture, wounded pride could only be healed with blood. Fire all weapons on the research vessel. Show these humans what happens when they dare to threaten the Nexari Empire. The massive battlecruiser's main guns erupted with brilliant energy beams aimed directly at the Kepler's Dream. Deadly fire never reached its target. 3 human destroyers had moved into the path of the Nexari weapons, their shields absorbing the full force of the attack. The human ships rocked under the impact, but held their positions, protecting the research vessel with their own hulls. Admiral Hyjin's voice cut through space like a blade of ice. All human vessels, the Nexari, have opened fire on civilian targets. You are authorized to engage with full force. Show them why Earth doesn't negotiate with bullies. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy. For generations to come, the human fleet didn't charge forward in a typical battle formation. Instead, they seemed to scatter in all directions, their ships moving in patterns that made no sense to the alien observers. But within seconds, the aliens realized they were witnessing something extraordinary. The human ships were using the gravitational fields of nearby asteroids and the magnetic interference from solar radiation to mask their movements. They appeared and disappeared like ghosts, striking at Nexari vessels from impossible angles before vanishing again. Engineer Soman watched the battle from the Kepler's Dream S viewport, tears of pride streaming down her face as she saw her People fighting with a skill that defied belief. They're not just fighting, she whispered to Captain Jiho. They're hunting. The Nexori fleet, which had seemed so powerful minutes before, began falling apart under the human assault. Their weapons couldn't track targets that moved like shadows. Their formations crumbled as human ships struck at exactly the right points to cause maximum chaos. General Kha'Zix watched in horror as his flagship's weapons failed to hit a single human vessel, while his own ships were being systematically destroyed by an enemy that seemed to be fighting according to rules no one else understood. How are they doing this? Screamed at his tactical officer. Our ships are faster and more heavily armed. Sir, they're using our own mass against us, the officer replied, his voice filled with terrified admiration. Every time we try to turn to face them, they use our momentum to predict where we'll be and strike from a different angle. It's like they can see the future. But even as the human fleet dismantled the Nexori forces with surgical precision, Admiral Hyjin made sure to honor the ancient laws of space warfare. When alien ships attempted to withdraw from the battle, they were allowed to leave safely. The human weapons targeted only those vessels that continued to pose a threat. Captain? Threx watched from the safety of his Valdorian trade ship as the humans demonstrated the difference between justice and vengeance. The Nexari ships that had attacked civilians were being destroyed without mercy, but other alien fleets that remained neutral were left completely untouched. Captain, his communications officer called out, we're receiving a priority message from the human flagship. Admiral Hygen's voice filled the Valdorian bridge, warm and grateful. Captain Threx, your people showed compassion when our researchers needed help. The Terran Defense Force will remember this kindness. Any Valdorian vessel in distress can call upon humanity for aid, and we will answer. Similar messages went out to the Corvani Assembly and other alien fleets that had come with peaceful intentions. But for those who had come looking for a fight, the lesson was brutal and final, within 20 minutes. The entire Nexari Third Fleet was either destroyed or fleeing in panic. General Kha'Zix's flagship limped away with its engines smoking and its weapons systems completely destroyed, carrying the humiliated general back to his empire with news that would change everything. The message echoed across the galaxy on every communication frequency. Touch a human under Earth's protection and face the consequences. Help a human in need and gain an ally for life. The age of testing humanity was over. 3 months after the battle that would forever change Galactic politics, Captain Jiho stood on the observation deck of Earth's orbital station, watching his home planet slowly rotate beneath him. The blue and white marble that had seemed so far away during those desperate days in space now filled his vision with its familiar beauty. Hard to believe it all started with a simple engine failure, said Engineer Soman, joining him at the massive viewport. She wore the golden medal that Earth Command had given to all 12 crew members of the Kepler's Dream, recognizing them as heroes who had accidentally triggered the most important military victory in human history. Navigator Hayan looked up from the tablet he was reading. The news feeds are calling it the 12-Day War, even though the actual fighting only lasted 20 minutes. Scrolled through headlines from across human space. Listen to this: how a broken research ship changed the galaxy forever. Captain Jiho smiled, but his expression was thoughtful. We never meant for any of this to happen. We just wanted to get home safely. But that's exactly why it worked, replied Communications Officer Dayan, who had been quiet for most of their conversation. We showed the galaxy what humans are really like. When we're in trouble, we don't give up. When our people are threatened, we come running. When someone helps us, we never forget. Their conversation was interrupted by an announcement over the station's communication system. All personnel, please welcome the Valdorian diplomatic vessel, New Friendship, as it approaches Docking Bay 7. Through the viewport, they could see the elegant Valdorian ship approaching the station. Captain Threx had arrived for his official appointment as the first alien ambassador to Earth, a position created specifically to honor the captain who had answered their distress call. Down in the diplomatic quarters, Admiral Hyjin was reviewing reports from intelligence officers across the galaxy. The news was better than she had dared to hope. The destruction of the Nexari fleet had sent shockwaves through every military command in known space. But the message had been received loud and clear. Ma'am, we're getting cooperation requests from 17 different civilizations reported. Captain Sung-ho. The Corvani Assembly wants to establish formal trade agreements. The Ethereal Collective is offering to share their advanced medical technology. Even some of the smaller species are reaching out. Admiral Hygiene nodded with satisfaction.
Oh, what about the hostile factions?
The Nexari Empire has withdrawn all their fleets to defensive positions around their homeworlds. General Kha'Zix has been removed from command and replaced with someone who's requesting peace negotiations. The other aggressive species are keeping their distance and avoiding any contact with human ships. But the most important changes were happening in the far reaches of space, where merchant vessels and exploration ships went about their daily business. Captain Wanbin, of the human cargo ship Lucky Strike, experienced this new reality firsthand. Just last week, his ship had been carrying medical supplies to a colony world when they encountered a damaged Zeltaroon freighter whose crew was slowly suffocating. In the old days, the Zeltarons might have been suspicious of human intentions. Instead, they had practically begged for help. "Please, human captain," the Zeltaron captain had pleaded over the radio. "We know your people honor rescue protocols. They have children aboard who won't survive much longer." Captain Wanbin had immediately diverted course to assist, spending 2 days helping repair the alien vessel and sharing their emergency air supplies. When he tried to refuse payment for the rescue, the grateful Zeltaron crew had insisted on giving him a rare crystal worth more than his entire cargo load. "You saved our families," the alien captain had explained. "The stories of human compassion have spread throughout our sector. We know that when humans make a promise to help, they keep it." Similar stories were being reported from every corner of human space. Alien ships in distress were actively seeking out human vessels, knowing they would receive immediate assistance. Pirates and raiders were avoiding areas where human ships operated, having learned that attacking anyone under human protection was a death sentence. But perhaps the most significant change was happening in the halls of power on distant alien worlds. Elder Jerima of the Corvani Assembly was addressing his people's parliament, proposing a formal military alliance with Earth. "My friends, we have seen what happens to civilizations that threaten humanity," he said to the assembled delegates. "But more importantly, we have seen what happens to those who befriend them. The humans have proven that their gratitude is as enduring as their vengeance is swift." On the crystal spires of Ethereal Prime, Council Leader Zephes was having a very different conversation with her fellow psychic masters. "We must abandon any thoughts of conquest regarding the human worlds," she warned them. "These beings have demonstrated military capabilities that exceed our worst fears. But they have also shown that they prefer friendship to warfare." The lesson was spreading across the galaxy like ripples in a cosmic pond. Every spacefaring civilization was learning the same fundamental truth. Humans were not just another species to be conquered or ignored. They were a force of nature that rewarded kindness and punished cruelty with equal measure. And at the center of it all, 12 human researchers who had simply wanted to study distant stars had accidentally created a new age of galactic peace. One built on the simple understanding that in the vast loneliness of space, compassion was the most powerful weapon of all.